WFIN.com, and now at 95.5 FM.
Tonight's forum presented by the Hancock County Republican Party.
Good evening. I'm Chris Oakes, and thank you for joining us for the third in our series of candidate forums this evening, featuring the three individuals running in the Republican primary for the position of Hancock County Sheriff. We are joined by Mike Cortez, Daniel Harmon, and Mark Price. Welcome to all of you. Since we will have three responses to each of the questions this evening, we're going to kind of compress the response times a bit in order to cover as much ground as possible. Each candidate will be allotted a minute, 30 seconds for responses. Follow-up questions or further discussion between the candidates will be allotted 45 seconds. So with that, let's begin with 2 minutes each for opening remarks, and we'll go in alphabetical order. We'll begin with Mr. Cortez.
Thank you. Mike Cortez, and I spent 29 years, 8 months at the Hancock County Sheriff's Office working in a variety of different job placements, and I am an educator of criminal justice students and law enforcement officers over the last 21 years, and I'm also a certified law enforcement executive through the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police. My vision that I want to bring to Hancock County and to the Hancock County Sheriff's Office is going to be one where we do a lot of improvement or enhancing of programs. So I would like to rebuild our K-9 program. I would like to enhance our school resource officer program, and I would like to enhance our community mental health collaboration and relationships so we can provide a better service for those that suffer from mental health issues. I would like to upgrade our technology in a sense where we can get body-worn cameras. I'm really a big proponent for officer accountability and transparency to where we can relate to the community when there's issues or questions that we can identify those issues. So bring in a new program called evidence-based policing and increasing our ability to investigate cyber crimes. And then on top of that, I would like to improve our recruitment and retention efforts. Thank you.
Mr. Harmon.
My name is Daniel Harmon. I have been a resident of Hancock County for 40 years. I live here currently with my wife of 33 years, Carrie. We live in rural Arlington. I am running for sheriff because I am the one that's from the outside. I started at the sheriff's office in 1991, left the sheriff's office in 1997, and have an outside view of the sheriff's office since then. I believe that I have good relationships with the deputies, and I've seen what they've been going through. I believe that they need to change. There has to be positive change. We need to look at the staffing levels. We need to reinstate the officers and the deputies into the system. When I'm also looking at community programs, when Mike's talking about mental health, I've been part of the mental health curriculum in Hancock County for over 2 decades. I've taught it. I've been knee-deep in it. I've boots on the ground with people in mental health issues, substance use disorders. So I know what those programs need to do, and we need to adjust those, and we need to improve those programs in the jail. Not only do we need to improve those type of programs in the jail, we need to improve faith-based programs in the jail, because just the mental health is not enough. We need to give these folks support and a idea of what they need to go ahead and have a great base for when they get out of jail. Thank you.
And Mr. Price.
Good evening. My name is Mark Price, and I'm currently serving as captain of the Enforcement Division of the Hancock County Sheriff's Office, and I am running to be your next sheriff. All three candidates you see standing up here, including myself, have decades of experience in law enforcement. We all have degrees, certifications, awards, and years worth of additional training and education of law enforcement practices. We've all worked the road. We've all been frontline supervisors, and we're doing that to keeping you safe. That's how we're similar. But my candidacy is a little unique. Serving as captain of the Sheriff's Office, I've had firsthand experience in the aspects of the job that the public don't see. Some of those include hiring, working directly with the commissioners to fund projects, being involved in union negotiations, budget development, and so many more. Additionally, This experience has also helped me be the next candidate for sheriff, as I understand how to use your tax dollars in a wise manner. I've worked with our county commissioners on several different funding operations, the last being a county-wide radio system upgrade that's provided new radios for all your county first responders, as well as other equipment. In addition, I had the fortunate to establish the cadet program, which has shown a pathway for those interested in serving our community, providing them with education and training that they need to become deputies. I'm proud to say, largely due to this program, the cadets will offer almost complete full staffing by the end of the year. I believe that my enforcement experience, combined with my experience on the administrative side of the sheriff's office, makes me the best candidate to be your next sheriff. I will do my best to keep our home safe, to live, to work, and to raise our families. Thank you.
I want to start with something of a philosophical question, if you will, rather than a specific policy or issue, to have you share the mindset that you are approaching this race and this job. As you know, Michael Heldman has served as Hancock County Sheriff since 1997, meaning that this will be the first time in nearly 30 years that we've had a new person at the top. Not only have there been many changes in both the community and in law enforcement over the past quarter century plus, we find ourselves at a time when all officers, from small towns to big cities, find themselves under more scrutiny than ever before. What will be your approach, your philosophy, your mission statement, if you will, to leading the Hancock County Sheriff's Office into this new era? And we'll begin with Mr. Harmon.
So this has been a very difficult time for law enforcement. Obviously, we've had several officers that have tarnished the shield over the years. One of the things that I always say, we need to address that head on. If there's a problem, we need to say to the community, this was wrong, and we need to get that community back on our side, because we look at that and we say, that was wrong, but we don't do anything about it. We always remain silent when it becomes an issue. So we'll just use the recent issue where a person had a knee on the neck for 9 minutes. Nobody from this community said, no, that was wrong. That should have been right off the bat from our community, from our leaders in the administration of the sheriff's office and of the police department. We need to have open communications with our community. Anytime there's a problem, we need to have that open door and those open communications where we're listening to what the problems are in the community and come up with some solutions.
Mr. Price.
The last 3.5 years as being an administrator has been very difficult. Trying to find qualified candidates, trying to fill vacant roles, making hard decisions as an administrator on where and how to cut back without cutting the safety and security of the county. The cadet program is going to get us there. I'm proud to say that. I've invested a lot of time in that. That's going to promote me to be able to make those decisions and bring back those things that we had to necessarily not cut back, but had to think about safety first. And the K-9 program is huge. They weren't cut. That was solely retirement. Not filled because of my staffing levels, not filled because of the experience that some of the deputies had. We need them to be able to handle the call load, the types of call load, that being mental health, what have you, in order to gain the strength that they need to continue to serve. And that takes time. The cadet program's there. It's working. It's also providing a career path now. It's not just a job here in Hancock County. I'm trying to make it so it's a career. It's a career. You can start in one field and work your way through, and that's what we have accomplished. We will give you the opportunity to get those certificates and move on. That will enable us to continue, my time's running out, that will enable us to continue into getting back involved in the community like we should be, and maybe we had to pull back a little bit. Thank you. 4 seconds.
And Mr. Cortez.
Thank you. So one of the main reasons that law enforcement officers say that they leave this job is because they don't feel supported by their administration. And so fostering a strategic plan and approach to supporting our people, our men and women that are in the jail, that work dispatch, that are out there on the street and face dangers on our behalf, is a must. That's where we have to start, is supporting and empowering and training our people so that they have the best tools equipped with them so we can address any challenges that may come upon us, whether it be a simple traffic crash investigation or maybe a hostage situation or maybe a officer-involved shooting. We have to be able to ensure that our officers are well-equipped, well-trained, and well-prepared. And at the end of the day, that benefit is going to come to you, the people, because you're going to receive the best value and best service possible.
Thank you. Moving to the specific issues, I think without question the top issue when it comes to law enforcement for Hancock County and virtually everywhere else in America, at least if you were to ask most members of the public, is getting a handle on drug abuse and drug trafficking. What tools need to be leveraged in order to better tackle this problem in our county? And we'll start this time with Mr. Price.
Again, it goes back to being able to fill those roles. Get deputies back into the detective unit. That was and is being rebuilt as we speak. Having the opportunity to start programs like HIDA, High Intensity Drug Enforcement Area. I was privileged to be part of that team many years ago where we worked and did interdiction on our highways. Unfortunately, we have I-75 that travels through our county. That's a main pipeline for travel and drugs. Unfortunately, that budget was cut, and it was cut because it was federally funded. That's something I would work hard to get it back, to get the deputies back working interdiction in our community, working closely with Metrich, which is our combination of our prosecutor's office, our Findlay Police Department, and members of the sheriff's office that work in the drug unit. I think that collaboration together and bringing back the canines could help benefit the entire community with the drug problem that's before us.
Mr. Cortez.
So I also served as a supervisor of our high-intensity drug trafficking area. That experience, coupled with my experience of leading and supervising the Tri-County Foster Zero Tolerance Task Force for 2 years, is going to give me the best opportunity and ability to tackle this drug issue. And our approach in Fostoria was just simply strict enforcement. We know we didn't just do plainclothes investigations and allow that to be our drug enforcement approach. What I plan to do is utilizing both plainclothes investigators coupled with uniformed patrol officers that are out there doing criminal patrol investigations. That way we can build multiple investigations against these drug traffickers. And when the time permits, we have enough probable cause, we will execute search warrants, and we will stand together, shoulder and shoulder, side by side, Hancock County Sheriff's Office, Findlay Police Department, and whatever other law enforcement agency is out there to aid us to show the people that we stand together against the crime in this community. And having a strong relationship with our prosecutor's office is also a must, because they will be the ones who are coming to review our search warrants, that will be taking our cases before a grand jury. Thank you.
And Mr. Hart.
So it's a team collaborative effort. Prosecutors, law enforcement, again, Findlay Police Department, Sheriff's Office, Ohio State Patrol. And when we also talk about team collaborative, we're talking about our mental health and substance use disorder community too. When we're talking to those folks and we're able to assess what the actual problem is, if you've ever talked to somebody in addiction, they can tell you where the problems are. They can tell you what the resources are that we need to start combating these drug problems. It's not just law enforcement. You know, I was on the SWAT team for 13 years, Special Assignment Unit, which is equal to what Mike and Mark were on in the City of Findlay Police Department. That's not enough. We got to look at the underlying issues and we got to combat that at the base level.
Aside from drugs, what would be the next most pressing problem in our community from a law enforcement standpoint, and what would you do to address it? We'll start with Mr. Cortez.
It would have to definitely be our mental health, our community mental health, and not only just the community mental health, but our mental health for our law enforcement officers as well. And so my approach with that is I've met with Family Resource Center and the National Alliance on Mental Illness and discussed what gaps exist between the Sheriff's Office and the mental health community, and what can we do to work together to better serve the value of the citizens or that demographic of folks that suffer from mental health illnesses. And it's this: we need to embed or integrate a joint effort between law enforcement and mental health professionals so they can have a specialized approach to each and every one of those calls that we encounter. Now, this is going to be a benefit on two sides. On the mental health side, it's going to be the benefit of those people getting the best services, getting follow-up, getting resources so they can get transportation to their appointments. And on the other side, it's going to benefit the road patrol deputies that are going to be able to be alleviated from sitting with those people for 2 to 3 or 4 hours, however long that may take at the hospital. So that ultimate approach from both sides is a must for our mental health care.
Mr. Harmon.
Okay, so this is a very dear and near heart to me. So I've been passionate about mental health for 20 years. I've been with the crisis intervention team for that long. I've coordinated the crisis intervention team, which is the one that trains the first responders in Hancock County how to respond to mental health crises. With that, I have actually been to several conferences nationwide. It's not just about law enforcement or mental health. It has to be a combined. I brought this back over 10 years ago where we decided we wanted to have a co-response. Is where we have trained professionals going out with our law enforcement. And what I've found that it's not actually a trained professional licensed social worker, it's a peer. Somebody that has that peer experience, that lived experience is the one's going to associate most with people with mental health. I helped create the Veterans Response Team in Hancock County, which is a peer-led organization where we respond to law enforcement requests to send a peer who has military veteran experience. That's where it's at. You know, we have to make sure that we're taking care of these folks on that level. You know, we also have to look at programs that are not necessarily to our area. You know, we always have things come in from Seattle, Washington. Don't work in this county. We have to specialize it. We have to customize it to our area.
And Mr. Price.
Both the colleagues have touched on mental health, and that's true. This morning I worked over an hour and a half to find transport of one of our mental health clients here in the county to find an open bed. That makes it difficult. They tied up a sergeant, a captain, and a deputy, holding over from a shift prior. We did make the arrangements, but we got to find a solution. We have to find a way, because jail's not the option. It's tying up the resources. The other thing is some of the immigration issues that we're seeing here in Hancock County. It's tying up patrolmen and deputies as we struggle to have those communications between each other. We struggle to find interpreters. You know, we are working with the courts. I sat on a board with the chiefs of the county, working with the courts in order to find out a way that we can accommodate interpreters for the patrol and deputies. We're trying to find ways to get them information through the Department of Public Safety. We're working with the health department. Unfortunately, they're here, and we're struggling to communicate with them. You know, I'm required to have an interpreter that's approved by the higher Supreme Court in order to give them their legal rights. And yes, they still have rights. They are human beings, and we have to find a way to work around it, and we are. It's just not a fast process. It's something we have to be diligent about doing.
In my conversations with Sheriff Heldman, he has admitted that at times it has been a challenge to shift his mindset with respect to some of the new methods of confronting, we mentioned the drug crisis, the mental health crisis in the community, things like alternative sentencing, treatment intervention, and so on. It's much easier, more old school to simply lock up those who commit criminal acts and use that as a deterrent. But the argument has been that that may not always be the most effective solution. So what are your thoughts on these types of alternative programs, and are there any that you would like to see expanded or conversely eliminated? And we'll start with Mr. Harmon.
So expansion of all these programs is something that I've been talking about, and that is, we have to do that. So expansion of Welcome to a New Life, expansion of faith-based programs in the jail. Any programs that we have in the jail have to be expanded. So just a person that comes up and has a mental health visit for 5 to 10 minutes is not going to work. It's not going to settle in. It's not going to be aggressive enough to help. Like I said, we can throw medications at these folks all day, but if we're not giving them hope and giving them a reason to be, then we're failing. On that note, like I said, we have to expand those programs, but we also have to work hand in hand with our mental health community. One of the things that I've been very proud of doing in this community is working hand in hand with mental health. We're talking 20 years of continuous, and we come up with ideas and we come up with resolutions, and it's just we just need to keep working hard. And when we expand, the thing was my top priority is faith-based programs.
And Mr. Price.
Rehabilitation is very important to our community. We have to give that a first and foremost effort. We don't have the capability in our current jail to have program areas. The jail was built in 1989, well before my time at the sheriff's office. We're limited on space, even though our current population is much lower than our 98-bed facility capacity. This morning we're at 61, which is a little high. Coming off the weekend, our average last week was 50 to 55. We currently have the room, but it's going to take funding. It's going to take a group effort with the commissioners and the public to know if we want to reconstruct our current facility or move somewhere that we can have these programs and possibly have some type of a rehabilitation center locally that we could work with these individuals and giving them an opportunity to make a better life.
And Mr. Cortez.
Definitely collaboration is going to be key here. So many times we have programs that, and everybody has their own agenda and they want to accomplish certain things. We need to bring all of these mental health based programs together and come up with a plan how we can best serve the community. When it comes to our inmates in the jail, we need to evaluate our current programming. We need to analyze what is working best and adopt any new practices or any new research-based programs that can help our inmates that are currently incarcerated. Now, part of that issue is that the average daily stay for those inmates is 16 days. So how much are the inmates really getting to 1 or 2 or maybe 3 visits? So we need a follow-up program that we can follow those inmates and ensure that those inmates are getting help and assistance on the outside. And again, it's going to take a collaboration of that.
Mr. Harmon.
So when we're talking about these programs, one of the things you have to do in this community is look at them. We get database programs all the time coming from California, New York, Seattle, Washington. You know, there's a time where we have to say, do these statistics match our area? Do they match what we're doing here in Hancock County? I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a huge opponent of the needle exchange in Hancock County. First of all, it's against the law to possess paraphernalia. Second of all, it was done out of something we learned from Seattle, Washington. It doesn't meet our demographics here in Hancock County. So when we're bringing in programs, we must sit down and look at those and study those and make sure they fit to our community.
Mr. Price, any response or follow-up?
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cortez? All right. Moving on. We mentioned, Mr. Price, you mentioned growing diversity of our community. You broached that subject, and it's true that our community, like many in this country, is becoming more and more diverse each and every year. Talk about, expand on the thought a bit of addressing the challenges that come along with growing diversity in our population. We'll begin with you and then go down the line. Mr. Price.
Over my years, and starting back in 1998, and coming from a small farm community in Wyandotte County, I didn't have a lot of diversity. So my first diversity was Findlay, Ohio. And we all know that there was not a lot here. Times have changed. Times have changed greatly since 1998 in my time and privilege of working here in the sheriff's office. I think the way we train our deputies is definitely different. The way they're trained in the academy the way that we promote more training within our office, and the conversations that we have are the ways that we're preparing our deputies for those encounters that we have in our community. I feel as a group, as we continue to work together with the public officials, with the community involvement and engagement, to hear those concerns, we can fight back a little bit. But it's going to take time. It's going to take effort amongst everybody. Just because you hold the title as sheriff doesn't mean you have all the answers. But working together with the community, we can make good things happen.
Mr. Cortez.
So back in the 1994, when I first started, I remember having to take a class called Cultural Diversity. And it was an education of how to interact with those that are different from us, whether they're African American or Hispanic or otherwise. Here about 3 years ago, I introduced a program, a training for our deputies called Racial Intelligence. And racial intelligence is the approach of being aware of our own biases, whether they're implicit or explicit biases. But what's more important than that is understanding the folks that are coming into our country. And I think that we need to go back and have a better understanding of their culture and what their expectations are, how they interact, you know, what's their norms. And we need to arm our officers with that information and couple it together with that racial intelligence training and be able to have identified resources for these folks that are coming in. That way we can vet those resources out to those individuals that may need our assistance in this community.
And Mr. Hart.
Okay. Sorry about that. Sun's getting in my eyes here. So I was fortunate enough to grow up in a very diverse community from age 7 to 14 in Batavia, Illinois. So when I came to Hancock County, it was kind of a culture shock to me. I've always been taught to accept people for who they are. You're a person first, and then we can talk about our differences, and that's one of the things we have to do, is talk about our differences. You know, we talk about race. That's not the only differences between us. We have religion, we have culture, we have how we were brought up, our families, and, you know, sexual orientation. We have to talk about these things and be open to each other. We don't always have to agree. I can guarantee that. We don't always have to agree, but we do need to start accepting people as people.
Thank you. At this point, we'll take a brief break. We will return with more from the candidates for the position of Hancock County Sheriff on our the third in our series of candidate forums from the Marathon Center for the Performing Arts on WFIN.
Your news authority is 1330 WFIN, and now at 95.5 FM.
The Hancock County Republican Party would like to remind you to join them for their first Friday luncheons. Enjoy a great meal, network with fellow Republicans, and listen to a featured speaker. Luncheons are held at Finley Moose Lodge, 698. Meal at 11:30, program at noon. March 1st, candidates for State Representative, 83rd Ohio District. April 12th, City of Finley update from Mayor Byrne. May 3rd, Hancock County update from commissioners. Please support local, state, and national candidates. For more information on upcoming events and the new office location, visit HancockCountyGOP.org.
Your first look at business and the business of life happens each weekday morning on WFIN. Hi, this is Gordon Deal, inviting you to join me at 5 a.m. for This Morning, America's First News. We'll give you the top money and business news and information about managing your money and retirement savings. Plus, there's the latest on technology, e-commerce, careers, health, entertainment, and much more. This Morning, weekdays at 5 a.m. And check out the weekend edition Saturday mornings at 5 on 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and now at 95.5 FM.
Take WFIN wherever you go with our updated mobile apps for iPhone and Android. And now you can listen to us on your Alexa device. Get the app at WFIN.com or in the App Store or Google Play. Plus, enable Alexa by searching for WFIN under Skills, and you'll soon be saying, Alexa, play 1330 WFIN. And the best part is the apps and skills are absolutely free. On the air at 1330 WFIN and 95.5 FM. Online at WFIN.com and on your smartphone, tablet, and Alexa devices prices.
This is WFIN News Director Matt Demchek with a reminder that when you see news happening, call our news tip line at 419-422-2056. That's 419-422-2056. Your news authority, 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and 95.5 FM.
Your news authority is 1330 WFIN. And now at 95.5 FM.
Stu, welcome back to our candidate forum this evening, featuring the three individuals running in the Republican primary for the position of Hancock County Sheriff. We are joined by Mike Cortez, Daniel Harmon, and Mark Price. Gentlemen, we mentioned at the outset the heightened level of scrutiny that law enforcement officers operate under today. We continually hear calls for more accountability and more transparency in law enforcement, and to that end, body cameras are considered by many to be the first safeguard for both officers and the public. Mr. Cortez, I'll begin with you since you brought this up a little bit earlier. Is this something that every deputy in Hancock County should have? You've already mentioned that it should, but could you expand on that, please?
Absolutely. Body-worn cameras can serve a multifaceted benefit, from officer accountability to resolving officer complaints to reducing the amount of overtime spent for officers having to go to court. It's no longer a he said, she said event with a body-worn camera. And it also increases our level of legitimacy as people look at us as law enforcement professionals, and also our transparency in our ability to communicate with the public that we have nothing to hide, and we will hold ourselves and our deputies accountable to the people, because ultimately that's who we answer to. And so ensuring that our officers are armed with that, and when it comes to civil litigation where someone may want to file a lawsuit against a particular deputy for a wrongdoing or a perceived wrongdoing, this is going to be a very beneficial piece of equipment. Several years ago, I had a in-car camera in my vehicle. A complaint was filed, and that alleviated any further investigation, because once the video was watched, we knew that the complainant was being untruthful. So it's very, very benefit to the officers and to the public in the community at large.
Mr. Harmon.
So I am a huge supporter of these body cameras. The sheriff's office had body cameras at one time, and they stopped using them, and I'm not sure why. I've been trying to push these at the Findlay Police Department for over 10 years, in the past 10 years. You know, accountability is huge. When I look at body cameras, though, I don't just want to look at body cameras. We need to look at the big picture. Because when we look at a body camera, how many of you watch those and you can't see what's going on? So we need to make sure we're researching these body cameras and make sure we're picking the one with the right point of view. I also believe in a car camera and a weapons camera, because you need to have all those points of views to make sure that we're being safe and we're being held accountable. You know, it's not just about one point of view, because we've all seen it. We've seen the body cameras ripped off, and we have to have that redundancy to make sure that's okay. And the smallest part of buying cameras is the cameras itself. It's where we have to do the redaction and keep the media. That's where it becomes a cost problem, and you're going to actually have somebody assigned to that. So the public has to be willing to take on that cost, and I will purposely go out there and push that particular cost. I'm not a big fan of taxes, I can tell you that right now, but that's one where I will say we need to have that in our place.
And Mr. Price.
So the Sheriff's Office did receive a grant many years ago, and I too had an in-car camera. We've never had body-worn cameras. Unfortunately, the grant ran out, and it must not have been a priority at that time. I can tell you right now, as an administrator, I've had to make some tough decisions. I've had to decide between body-worn cameras and a radio system that can communicate with all of our first responders throughout the county. I chose the radio system. I chose to have the front lines be able to communicate with dispatch, do the proper upgrades in dispatch, work towards completing a new tower build, as you see the building behind us, or behind you, is being built. Work for an infrastructure to combine all those and make sure our communication as a first responder community is what it needs to be. My goal has been body-worn cameras. Unfortunately, I made that decision. I went with what I thought we needed right now to protect ourselves. I think it's a great asset. Mike's touched on good points. Dan's touched on good points. They're needed. We now need to fund them. I've also worked closely with the Findlay Police Department. They did a large study over 3 types of different type of cameras. I've had the privilege of reading that. I have a little insight there. I also know about records of retention. I also understand what it's going to take to redact these videos and make them for public record. I understand that's going to create another position in order to fulfill that role at the Sheriff's Office, which is all budget issues. And we need to make sure we can afford it before we jump into another process.
Mr. Cortez.
I just want to clarify the body-worn cameras. Did we have them? Did we not have them? In 2016, myself, along with Sergeant Kinsinger, collected about 4 different brands to beta test these body-worn cameras. So, yes, we did have them for a testing purpose. We pulled together a proposal and submitted it to the sheriff, and that proposal was to the tune of about $250,000. And that was to equip every deputy with an in-car camera, a body-worn camera, and every corrections officer with the body-worn camera as well. It was due to the cost that we decided not to do it, because I believe we decided to purchase new tasers instead. So,
Just follow up, Mr. Harmon.
So with the body-worn cameras, you know, everybody wants to have police accountable. There are plenty of grants out there right now to subsidize that and bring that money to Hancock County. I can guarantee that because Hardin County, I work part-time down there, they have body-worn cameras. That's not a very wealthy area that has a lot of money and a lot of industry and a lot of money like Hancock County does. But they have gone and sought grants. And, you know, I know Mark and Mike have also done it, and we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to seek grants for some of that stuff.
Mr. Price, anything to add?
Thank you.
Okay. Expanding on that topic of reaching out to those in the community who may be skeptical or outright critical of the policies and procedures of the Sheriff's Office for whatever reason. We mentioned body cameras as one way to address that. How else would you build and maintain trust with the public? And we'll begin with Mr. Harmon.
So communication, again, is key. So one of the things that when we had the protest here in Hancock County for the incident that happened elsewhere, you know, I went out. I was the one that was sent out to address the community, address the crowd that was out there. From that conversations and having those open conversations, I was able to make contact with several different people in the community, and we had meetings after those protests. We were able to keep those protests calm here. You know, there was a gentleman that was standing right next to me that was dressed in Antifa garb. I walked up to him, I started a conversation with him, and he said, quote unquote, "You're the first officer that I've ever been to one of these that actually came up to talk to me and engage me in a conversation." And he left. So just that open conversation, that deters people from here to come in here and causing those issues. So, you know, you have to have forums. You have to have, you know, this is great. I love being out here in front of you and the conversation. I wish we could have a conversation with the people in the community or the group here. But that conversation has to be started. And, you know, we were born with 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we listen first, and then we take in what we hear, and then we discuss it.
Mr. Price.
Community engagement is the key. I spend a lot of time attending trustee meetings, township association meetings, commissioners meetings, going to any type of meeting that is required of the sheriff or his designee. The communication is key for us to be successful as a community. Working together and constantly staying in tune with what's needed. If we can't have that, unfortunately, I can't force it. I have to have a community willing to call, willing to ask questions. I spent today, better part of about 35 minutes talking to 2 individuals on concerns they had. I was able to settle those and move on throughout my day. Those are the things that we are doing, we continually do. Because of the Community-Based Policing Act that Sheriff Hellman put in back in '96, it's still there. We're still utilizing it. We just have to emphasize it more. We have to push it a little harder, and that's what I'll do.
And Mr. Cortez.
Thank you. One of the big things that we need to re-implement is community-based surveying. So we could get feedback directly from the community as to how we are performing, and taking that data, analyzing it, holding focus-centered groups with the community to identify what can we do to work together to fill those gaps. How can we fill those gaps so that we as the Sheriff's Office can provide a better service and a better value to the community? On top of that, I myself have been the liaison for block watch programs. You know, we need to continue that program where we actually go out into the community and engage with them on the level of where it's an education and awareness effect, how you can reduce your probability of being a victim of crime. That was very effective. Holding community-based events where, you know, if active shooter is the trend, then we're going to provide the community with training on what you should do in response to an active shooter event. So keeping that line of communication and transparency open between both sides will increase our ability to provide a better service.
Yeah, I just got to add, like I said, going out there, I can't wait for the community to come to me sometimes. I have to go out there and look for them. Just like when we're doing hiring process, I can't just wait for people to come and apply at the Hancock County Sheriff's Office. I have to go look for these people. I have to go headhunt these people. I have to seek the community. I have to seek that audience. It's not just about, you know, and I get Mark, he's busy, and there's times where we are going to be busy, and there might be not times that we can't return that phone call, but we have to have that communication with that person, say, hey, you know, I was busy this many times, I'm going to call you back when I can. Scheduling an appointment and having that face-to-face conversation is the most important thing we can do with our community. It's not about talking to them on the phone. It's not about talking about emails. It is face-to-face communication.
Mr. Price or Mr. Cortez, anything follow up? All right.
No, thanks.
At the end of the day, and this is something that's been brought up, law enforcement is a job, and like any employer, finding and keeping good people in those jobs, whether they be patrol, patrol, corrections, communications, office staff, etc., is a challenge these days. You each come at this with a slightly different perspective, but from your point of view, how would you describe the current staffing level in the Sheriff's Office today? Are there areas where more personnel are needed, and how do you attract and retain the best staff for those positions? And we'll begin with Mr. Price.
So we still are short. However, the cadet program is there. It's working. I have 2 in training. I have a total of 4 coming out of the cadet program once they pass their state physical. They pass their state test, and the audit's completed through OPATA, the academies that govern the certificate. We do have some training to do. We have weeks worth of training to do in-house on top of that. But with the program, we're getting qualified applicants daily. I had another one turned in today. I'm so excited to be able to tell that to you, because a year ago, we didn't have any. We didn't have no applicants. The program's there. The success is going to be there. We're able to, again, create a career at the Sheriff's Office and not just a job. We're going to be able to give someone the opportunity to start in corrections and then migrate throughout the office where they see a fit for them. We offer now not only the job, but the certifications and the education and the training needed to accomplish those jobs. Right now, the jail's been fully open since January of 23. We're currently down 2 female officers with the last 2 males in training to operate our 98-bed facility. We're on the move. Good things are happening due to this cadet program, and I'm proud to say that.
Mr. Cortez.
So on the recruitment side, my first move would be to speak with the folks at Millstream Vocational School to see if we can't implement a law enforcement program at the high school level so we can start our recruitment efforts right there. And we can guide them into our Explorer program, into our Special Deputies program, and possibly hire them into corrections or as a deputy or a dispatcher. Now, our bigger issue is our retention. Our retention, since 2009, approximately 115 corrections officers have quit. Just left. Not retired, not transferred anywhere else within the agency. They just quit. Over the last 3.5 years, 13 deputies. There's a culture issue that we need to address and bring forward and we need to start to support our deputies, our corrections officers, our dispatchers, all of our employees to the degree where they feel empowered, they feel like they could be supported, and they could be career pathed and take pride into their own job where they know they're going to be valued.
And Mr. Harmon.
So unfortunately, I've had the conversation with Pam Hamlin, who is in charge of Millstream career. We've had this conversation actually about 8 years ago. She actually tried to get a first responder commitment, and it was shot down by the board. So unfortunately, that's not going to be an option for at least a while. We can still go after that and talk about that, but retention is one of those things. Why did I leave the sheriff's office? Well, because I felt like I wasn't part of the team. I felt like I wasn't appreciated, and I felt that over at the police department. And how was I felt? I was felt like that because they allowed me to train, they allowed me to be a part of it, they allowed me to have input, and you have to have that. These deputies and corrections officers, and I'm telling you, the corrections officers are probably one of the most mistreated people on the face of the planet, but they need to be treated like human beings, and we need to listen to them, and we need to involve them in our decisions. That open door policy, one of the stories I got from them was they had an idea, it was handed to a supervisor, the supervisor folded it in half and threw it in the trash. That's unacceptable, period. It doesn't matter where you work, but that is really unacceptable in law enforcement. So retention is making sure that we're treating our people right.
Yes, Mr. Price.
So Mike brought up some points about some of the turnover. The national average for a correction officer to stay in a career is 5 years. Having the capability to move throughout the office where we can train you and you can get the certifications needed to continue your career, I think is invaluable. I also know that we had a lot of loss due to retirements. COVID affected us to a point that I can't even tell you, and we don't have enough time in my 24 seconds. But to bounce back from that with the retirements and with the generation that came in that started a career in law enforcement and quickly found out it wasn't for them. A lot of those that left are now working in the private sector, factory jobs, manufacturing jobs. It wasn't for them, as they told me in the exit interviews.
Yes, Mr. Harmon.
So on that note, I would say there's at least 10 to 15 corrections officers that work at the Findlay Police Department. I know one that started in corrections, went to the sheriff's office, and now is a probation officer with the municipal court. The programs that we have to get these folks, the state patrol has opened up a police academy, and this has been going on. We've actually been sending people to the police academy for free for several years now. That's not a new program. Why are we not sending our corrections officers who want to be deputies to do that? Why are we not making our, I mean, it's one of those things, it's a money thing, but I know there's a lot of corrections officers that want to be deputies. Have that, that's also called a force multiplier, where we have that big community of law enforcement.
Mr. Cortez.
I know Mr. Price talked about national averages, and I won't disagree that nationally the averages that people are leaving the law enforcement world. But to me, as a potential sheriff that is responsible for leading and guiding an agency and a community, what's happening here? That's what I'm concerned with. What are we doing wrong here? How can we be better? How can we improve how we interact? How can we improve our leadership? Identify, bridge that gap between the older generation and that younger generation that needs to be led in a different way.
We're going to move on because our time is running short. I want to make sure that we get this question in. We all know that Hancock County is a growing area, the top micropolitan area in the community, in the country for the past decade, as we are frequently reminded. And with that comes the challenge of dealing with the growth and expansion of the community. As such, the need for additional jail space has been brought up many times over the years. How urgent do you feel is the need to expand the current jail facility or build a new facility? And what will your approach be to addressing that need? And we'll begin with Mr. Cortez.
So back in 2020, a jail study was completed. and 6 items were identified as to what needed improved. Our occupancy, 98-bed facility versus the average daily jail population of 125. Mental health, medical needs, officer amenities, inefficient booking, intake and outtake, and a indirect supervision style versus a direct supervision style. Now, having said that, since the closing of one of the wings, the City of Findlay has chosen to contract with the Correction Center of Northwest Ohio. So we are losing 20, 30, 35 inmates. So do we really need to build a new jail, or do we need to reevaluate and take a look at what we can do with our current facility so we're not incurring a $47 or $48 or $50 million build cost to the taxpayers of Hancock County?
Mr. Hartman.
So that the $47 to $48 million, that's the lower end. I don't know if you know that the higher end is $191 million. And that's over 25 years. I get it. It's projected over 25 years, and it includes staffing, and it includes the jail, and it includes the new sheriff's office. I'm a taxpayer again, so I have to be very fiscally responsible with your tax dollar monies. We just put on a tax levy, or we asked for money to fix the current jail that we have. We replaced the doors, we replaced the windows. You know, and then like Mike said, the City of Findlay is not only contracting with Stryker to alleviate the jail closing, they're alleviate the cost to the City of Findlay. At one time, it was $132 per diem to house an inmate for the City of Findlay. Who do you think the biggest customer is of the jail? It's the City of Findlay. They brought it down to $112, but Stryker's only charging them $80 per diem. So in the money-wise, where are you going to send them? You're going to send them away. And another thing we need to do, and the courts have been doing a fabulous job of it. When I started there, most of the people were there in that jail were there for traffic offenses, driving under suspension. And I'm not talking DUIs. I'm talking about driving under suspension, no driver's licenses. The courts have done a fabulous job of trying to alleviate that by getting people their driver's licenses back. So I'm not for a brand new jail right now, and it will be for the taxpayers to decide. And I've never changed that opinion.
Mr. Price.
Yeah, I touched on this earlier. Our facility was opened in 1989. We don't have the program facilities. We don't have the improper booking. We don't have a lot of the amenities for mental health either. The problem is we're no longer busting at the seams. Our daily population pre-COVID was over 135. Outside resources, outside housing at a cost of $500,000 to you, the taxpayers. But since 2020 and coming out of COVID, I'm nowhere near the 98-bed facility max. As I stated earlier, 61 as of 10 o'clock this morning before arraignments. Can we reevaluate that plan? Can we look back? I don't know. Are we going to bounce back to 130 plus inmates here in Hancock County? I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you that. But looking at the way the court is pushing, the prosecutors are prosecuting, I don't know. I think it needs to be reevaluated and to look into a better solution.
And with that, we will move on to final remarks, and we'll begin with Mr. Price.
I truly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. As you have learned, I have firsthand experience with the majority of the aspects of the job, including a lot of those that the public don't see. I've developed and maintained the Sheriff's Office budget, so I know and understand how to use your tax dollars in the most beneficial way. I continue to have a collaborative approach, not only with the city and the county agencies, but the public. And I'll work to make the office as efficient as possible. I'll work to strengthen the specialty programs like K-9. I once was issued a K-9. It lasted a whopping 10 hours before I found out I was severely allergic to canines. Yes, I grew up on a family farm. I had a sheepdog growing up named Winston. I didn't see it coming. I didn't like that decision, but we had to do what was right for the citizens. I'll continue to work hard to promote the cadet program, which I think is making strides and giving us the qualified people that we need to fill those vacancies. I understand Being sheriff is a commitment to this community. I'll do my best to keep it safe, keep a safe place to live, work, and raise your family. I'd appreciate your support now through March 19th. Thank you.
Mr. Harmon.
All right, so why do I want to be your sheriff? First of all, God has put this in my heart to do this. I don't have to do this. I'm a retired police officer. This is not one of those things that I need the money. It's not that I like the prestige, because I really, no offense, but I really don't like sitting up here in front of all you folks. But I like talking to people individually. One of the things I want to do is bring the sheriff's office and bring it back to the community. This sheriff's office is not my sheriff's office. It belongs to the citizens of Hancock County, and I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a firm believer in when you're an elected official, it is my responsibility to train and bring your deputies up to par, but I'm not a dictator. I'm one that comes in and will do what the community wants us to do. Therefore, I'm not going to impose, yes, we have to have a jail. I'm not going to impose, yes, we need to have more deputies. Even though we do, it's going to be a tax-based issue, and I need to have that open communication with the community. It's not something that we can just come in and say, I'm the sheriff, this is the way it's going to be. That's not how it works. You know, again, elected officials, we need to hold our elected officials more accountable, and we need to start following the Constitution of the United States. I'm just telling you that right now. Thank you.
And Mr. Cortez.
First, I want to say thank you guys for doing your part as voters, for being here and taking the time to really research the candidates for this seat. And thank you to the people that are listening at home and those that are watching via the Facebook. We are at a pivotal moment here in Hancock County to elect a new law enforcement leader for our community. So you can say, I want to accept the status quo, or you can join me and say, I refuse to accept the status quo and embrace change and embrace the challenges that are ahead of us, and know and have the confidence that I will lead you, I will lead the men and women of our sheriff's office in the right direction for a better and safe community. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this evening. We'd also like to thank the candidates for taking part in this evening's forum. A reminder that early in-person and absentee voting is now underway, and Election Day itself is Tuesday, March 19th. Please join us next week for our final forum ahead of the primary election, featuring the three candidates hoping to become Hancock County Commissioner. Until then, I'm Chris Oakes. Good night.
Thanks for joining us for tonight's political